This one's going to be interesting. We're going to have to dig in this one pretty deep. Carolina Panthers at New Orleans Saints. New Orleans comes away with the win 47-10. And somehow it was uglier than the score even indicated for the Carolina Panthers. Let's take a look at the good before we get to the Panthers. So let's take a look at the New Orleans Saints top 5 players, top 5 graded players in this game. You go to the offensive line, Eric McCoy, a vet now, playing well once again, 90.7 overall grade in this past game. Another vet, Tyrann Mathieu, 81.8 overall grade at number 2. Alvin Kamara, I might as well just keep saying they're all vets. Coming in at number 3, 81.6. The veterans leading the way. You'll love to see it. Tight end Foster Moreau caught a touchdown, 79.3 overall grade. Cornerback Alante Taylor, who had an interception in this game, 75.9 overall grade. Derek Carr, who would have been number 2 on this list, but we're sort of separating quarterbacks so we can make sure we mention them all. 87.5 grade. You love to see that from Derek Carr. We'll get into that a little more. When we flip over to the other side of things for the Carolina Panthers, Damian Lewis and Robert Hunt, the 2 new free agent offensive linemen, they lead the way, which is good. Lewis had an 80.0 grade. Hunt had a 79.5 overall grade. A'Shawn Robinson, the defensive tackle, had a 73.0 as the 3rd highest graded player. Center Austin Corbett, again, you love to see that the interior offensive line's playing better in Carolina. Well, a little silver lining here, folks. 71.7 overall grade. And then Xavier Woods at number 5 with a 71.5. Quarterback Bryce Young, 32.6 overall grade in this game. I'm going to start with my stat that told the story because it is a transition here with Bryce Young, and I want to know what you think as well. The stat that's telling the story here with Bryce Young, and look, all of his stats were bad. 13 for 30, 161 passing yards, 2 interceptions, 2 turnover-worthy plays, 0 big-time throws, and just a 50% adjusted completion percentage, which takes out drops from wide receivers, so it's meant to help quarterbacks out a little bit. Still just 50%. The stat that's telling the story for me now, Dalton, is that Bryce Young, through now 1 full season and 1 game, has more games with a passing grade in the 30s than he does games above 70. I'm not even talking about like above 80, like a great performance, an elite performance, just above a below average performance. Bryce has more catastrophic performances than he does even barely above averages performances. And we're getting to the point where it's not perfect in Carolina, but Bryce was also bad yesterday. He was a part of the reason why that grade was poor. Yes, I don't think Ike Ekwonu had a great game. Yes, I don't think the wide receivers had a great game. The run game still, they're trying to figure it out. And obviously Dave Canales, I think, is still trying to figure it out in just year 2 of him being a play caller because he did that for the first time last year in Tampa. But Bryce was throwing, like that first interception for him, that is nowhere in his Alabama tape. Nowhere. He is a completely different player now in the NFL where all of his strengths seem to not exist, and all of his weaknesses have gotten worse. And now it is truly, if you looked at the spectrum of what could be the NFL future of Bryce Young before he was drafted, best case and worst case scenario, we are dangerously close to whatever the worst case scenario is. And I'm worried about him because I hope that last year was simply his play being a product of the environment. And maybe it'll still take a little bit for him to get better, for the environment to improve overall. But man, I was hoping that it'd look a lot more confident and a lot more crisp than it did in week 1, and it absolutely did not.
You just said the word at the very end there, and it's the confidence. And we don't have, for as many, we have zillions of numbers and a mountain of data here to work with, but we can't quantify confidence. And I think it's early in the season, obviously, but we saw this with Zach Wilson and the Jets. We saw this with Mac Jones in New England. We saw this with Justin Fields in Chicago. We saw it with Desmond Ridder in Atlanta. If your quarterback doesn't have any confidence in his own abilities, and I think something to highlight was those top 5 grades that we had, those 3 guys that were the interior offensive linemen. Last year, I could blame that. Their interior protection was horrible last year. And if it's going to be good and Bryce is reasonably well protected, and you're right, especially on the move. I remember at Alabama, him being able to make throws on the move and just play with instinct even outside the pocket, right? That was one of the great things with Bryce Young was the playmaking. He's just not making the plays right now. And I thought the Panthers were going to come out a whole lot better. And I would be worried about Bryce Young's confidence right now, more than his ability to play football. We've seen this with so many quarterbacks, young quarterbacks over the years, where it's just they lose that mojo, right? And I can't quantify mojo. I don't have a mojo. I don't have a mojo number, right?
We need it. We need it though.
I need
how to quantify mojo.
I need someone in our data science team to create just a grade for mojo or something. Anyway, I'll tell you who did have the mojo. Of course, in New Orleans, you have the mojo.
Oh,
Derek Carr sitting behind
beautiful, my friend. Incredible transition.
Derek Carr,
well done.
I'm trying to get him to invite me back from Mardi Gras. Derek Carr sitting behind this offensive line. I'm going into this offensive line because it was the biggest concern I had going into the season for the Saints. 3 pressures they allowed all day. 3 over an entire football game. Last year they were 26 in the league as a team in pass pro grade. They were just spectacular. It was actually, they had a higher pass pro grade in this game than in any game last season, and every starting offensive lineman had a pass pro grade over 74.
Love it.
Across the board. You mentioned Eric McCoy, Talisi Fuaga on the left side. I'm actually going to roll right into my most impressive guy, and it's him. The first rookie we have as the most impressive player, Talisi Fuaga. Playing a position he did not play a single snap of in college. He was a right tackle in college. Switches over to the left side. 26 pass pro reps, 0 pressure, leads the team with an 87.3 pass pro grade. He was spectacular. And the combination of what they did in Clint Kubiak's system, you're going to get into that in a second, helping him. They did help him with some chips. They did help him with some bootlegs and things like that. So some of those reps weren't, say, the most difficult reps in true drop back, and they were ahead and they could run their entire offense and do things to help him. But still spectacular, and he is going to Clint Kubiak for a second because Fuaga is the perfect fit as a tackle in this system as an outside zone runner and doing everything. Another guy, Kubiak from the Shanahan tree, he could, for a guy who ran that sort of thing at Oregon State more than basically any lineman in the country for 3 years, he's in a perfect fit in this offense for this run game, and he held up really, really well in pass protection in his first game in a new position.
Yeah, I'll give you the stat that really speaks very loudly of how well Clint Kubiak was dialing things up, and he's my most impressive here for the New Orleans Saints. Chris Olave, 2 targets, 2 catches, 11 yards, no touchdowns, 47 points. Team had 47 points, and they didn't even need Chris Olave to do it. Last year, it felt like if Chris Olave didn't have 150, this team wasn't winning the football game. And it just looks very different now, specifically on third down. I've talked about third down a couple of times here on the show. I think it's very crucial because those are often sort of the do or die plays, right? It's sort of like, hey, backs against the wall, call the good ones, if you will. Like, let's convert here, let's keep the drive going. Saints on third down last year, 67.4 overall grade as a team, 38.7 conversion percentage. Against Carolina, 81.8 overall grade on third down, 53.8% conversion percentage. The only team last week, or this week I should say, that was better than them on third down was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we're going to get to that because that's, I think, a great point of what is rolling down in Tampa. But hats off to Clint Kubiak. Incredible job in his first game. I think that he had Derek Carr playing very confident, the whole team playing confident, and unfortunately my most disappointing is on the flip side of that. It's Dave Canales. The team was not ready. The Carolina Panthers were not ready in a lot of ways. I mean, you've even got your stars on defense like J.C. Horn, just absolutely getting burnt. And I need to go back and watch the coverage because I don't know if it was like single coverage for him. He should have been a lot closer, whatever it was. But like Rashid Shaheed just right out of the gate. Horn was the closest defender. So, I mean, it did not look good for the Carolina Panthers at any point in time. And this was a group that did not play their starters very much this preseason. And I remember going throughout the preseason and asking the question, well, hold on here. I know you don't want these guys to get hurt.
This is a team that needs
You're the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. Like, you're not the Kansas City Chiefs. You got to be playing these guys. These guys got to get reps. And they looked like they did not get enough reps. And I think that was a blundering of how they handled training camp at the preseason, and I think they paid for it, and losing to the Saints a lot worse than they should have. So.
I agree, and my most disappointing, I'm going to flip it from, we talked a lot about their offense, but their offense, I figured there was a chance with Bryce and a lot of new pieces that there was going to be some time to gel. This defense is supposed to be the better unit on this team, and a 49.8 team defense grade. They only had one game lower than that last year. So their defense,
they were not ready.
I'll say it over and over. Their defense was a respectable unit last year. It was like a decent defense that kept them in a good number of games. They won't win at all. Even if Bryce gets better, they won't win at all with their defense playing the way it played against New Orleans. So Dave Canales, Ajiro Evero, again, I thought it was great that he kept him around because I thought this was going to be at least a decent defense. Again, they kept a lot of the same pieces. You have good players. You have Derek Brown. You have J.C. Horn. You have good linebackers. It's pretty much all there is to it, is on both sides they didn't put anything together. And I was more disappointed in the defense because I thought that was still going to be the better unit on their team, especially early in the season.
Yeah, a lot of people pointing out in the chat, hey, they were playing the Saints, they were playing a bad team in the Panthers, but hey, you can only play the team that's on your schedule every single week. Take care of business. The Saints absolutely took care of business, so I still want to give them their flowers there. They deserve it. We'll see next week. I don't even know who their opponent is next week. We'll get to that in a second.